99.9% of people who are listening to this training right now have not heard what I am about to share with you. Nobody has ever shared this text. Nobody has ever taught you this principle. I can guarantee that may not be true for every single person, but for 99.9% of you, it probably is. And I am very excited to share this with you today. I am calling it the 11-11 principle, and I want you to stay tuned because I'm not just referring to generic angel numbers or talking about a basic manifestation concept here, but there is an ancient text that I was guided to this week just for you, and I really believe there is a message for every single person who has found themselves here. So I will read you the text and get to that 11-11 principle that, like I said, I can almost guarantee you've never been taught before in just a moment. But before I read the text, I want to welcome in every single person to the Stephen Lovegrove show, and particularly to a mini episode, which is what today's is going to be. All things are possible for the one who believes, and you are the one. And I believe in you. I am so grateful that you are here. Would you take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications? That helps us out tremendously every single time you do it. And that makes your algorithm better, a little more inspiring and encouraging and empowering. If you are hearing my voice and hearing one of my teachings for the first time ever, I would particularly love for you to leave a comment. Let me know that you are here so I can say hi and welcome to the community. As always, this episode is brought to you and made possible by my incredible and generous partners all over the world. If you would like to join them, you can get all the information online at lovegrovepartners.com. And partners, I just want to remind you right off the top today that we are truly in a partnership together. I take that very seriously. I take that as a sacred and special thing. And what flows to me flows to you as well. I invite you to claim that because we are in agreement. And the most powerful thing in the world is an agreement. Now, like I said at the top, this is a mini episode. I am about to read you an ancient text, and we're going to dive into what I am calling the 11-11 principle today. But let me just say, because this is a mini episode, I don't have the time and the space here to go into every single concept along the way in depth to the extent that I normally would. So here's what I'm going to do, essentially. I'm going to read this text. I'm going to share this principle with you, and I'm going to teach through everything that I was guided to for this particular teaching and this particular moment. There are a lot of ideas headed your way over the next few moments, but again, we're going to move through them fast. So I would actually invite you to maybe re-listen to this one, to maybe play this one through 2 or 3 times this week if you feel drawn to, just to make sure that you soak it all in. But without further delay, let me read you the text that stopped me in my tracks the other day in my own time with God that I knew I was meant to share with you. So, the text I'm about to read is from an ancient spiritual manuscript called the Epistle to the Hebrews. And the reference of this one scripture, of this one quote and idea that I'm using today is literally Hebrews 11:11. And so the other day I was guided to this particular text in this particular section. I'm reading it in a modern translation that really tends to draw out the spiritual and the metaphysical truths for us. And I get to this particular verse and it stops me in my tracks. And then the cherry on top is that I realize the specific verse and idea that is speaking to me is literally 11:11. How fun is that, family? So here's the text, the 11:11 text that I knew was for our community this week. It says, Sarah's testimony of faith is just as amazing. She conceived and bore a child when it was humanly impossible. She believed that God would be faithful to his promise. And then pay extra attention to this last line, because this is where I want to go for a few moments today. This is what I'm calling the 11:11 principle. It says, and she gave that belief authority over her life. She gave that belief authority over her life. And God, I'm going to do a quick, accelerated prayer here as I teach today, and just ask that you would speak through me right now, guide me, direct me, speak through me as I record this, and would you translate it in an individual and personal way for every single person on the other end. May they receive everything they need from it, everything they desire, and so much more. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So that last line caught my attention. In this verse, this 11:11 scripture, that line that said, she gave that belief authority over her life. And I actually want to take it a step further, even beyond just that reading, because when this grabbed my attention, I did a little bit of study and I learned some things about the original text and the original language, and I went into the research and the footnotes, and it got even more interesting when I did, because the word that is being used there, and I know this sounds very nerdy and dense and theological, but go with me here. The word that is being used there, when it says she gave that belief authority over her life, it actually means to officially appoint in a position of authority. That is the word being used originally in the ancient text. It means to officially appoint in a position of authority. You can think about that word in the context of somebody choosing the royal family, the royal leader, the royal monarch, somebody choosing their king or their queen or their prime minister, somebody choosing the president, choosing a CEO, choosing a representative. You can take it any way that you want, but the word being used here means to officially appoint in a position of authority. And I just couldn't stop thinking about this particular text once I learned that, because I had never heard that language before. I had never seen this before. And it got me thinking, what does it mean to officially appoint not a person, not a king, not a queen, not a ruler, not a leader, but to officially appoint a belief in a position of authority in your life? See, here's what this tells me. Something is in authority in your life right now. In your mind, in your heart, in your creation, in your inner world, in your consciousness. This text is telling me there is a seat of authority, a seat of decision-making, a seat of power that has to be filled by someone or something. Something is in authority in your inner world right now. Something is running the show. Something is in charge. And it's not necessarily and automatically what you might hope or think or wish that it was. It's not automatically love. It's not automatically faith. It's not automatically success. It's not automatically God. It's not automatically your destiny. It's not automatically the real, authentic you. But something is in authority, calling the shots, running the show in your inner world right now. And you say, well, Stefan, why would it not automatically be good? Why would it not automatically be love? Why would it not automatically be the right thing? And among many reasons, I would offer to you the fact that all of us, when we were born into this human experience, stepped into a society, stepped into a global community, stepped into a collective. And there is a lot of noise out there, and there is a lot of programming out there, and there is a lot of fear and division and separation of all kinds. And so from the time we are little, we are told all kinds of things. We are taught explicitly and implicitly all kinds of things. We are programmed with all kinds of things. And so this text indicates to me something is always going to be in authority in my inner world. Whether I am aware of it or not, whether I consciously chose it or not, whether I like it or not, something is going to be calling the shots, running the show for me. I would suggest to you today, one way to think about this is that your beliefs, no matter what they may be, are creating your life right now. I invite every single person who is with me today to type that out in the comments just to help integrate that foundational truth today and to begin to think about it and sit with it and reflect on it for your own life. My beliefs are creating my life right now. Positive or negative, true or false, conscious or unconscious, whether it's working for me or not, whether I like what it's doing to me or not, my beliefs are right now creating my life. And so as we move forward today, I want to invite you to ask yourself this question: what beliefs are currently in authority in your life? What beliefs are currently in authority in your life? And you might say, Stefan, how would I know or figure out or be able to answer that? How would I know what beliefs are in authority in my life? How would I figure that out? Well, I would invite you to look for what beliefs seem to pop up again and again and again in your brain, no matter what you do. What beliefs do you find yourself, notice yourself, catch yourself saying out loud to someone without even thinking? What beliefs seem to surface in your most intense and emotional moments? What beliefs seem to be proven true again and again and again as a pattern? What beliefs would you argue for and even fight somebody over? Hopefully, energetically fight, not physically, just to clarify. These are some places that you can look, but I am praying that as you hear this episode, you will be guided to the answer for you. What beliefs are in authority in my life right now? Because it is a spiritual, metaphysical, eternal truth. You become what you believe. You become what you believe. Now, Jesus actually said that direct quote to somebody right in the middle of a miracle. But I want you to understand today, When something is truly a universal law, a universal principle, a universal truth, it works across the board, whether it's quote unquote positive or negative. Let me explain what I mean here. So Jesus says that line to someone right in the middle of a miracle. You become what you believe. And it is certainly a truth in that moment. And the person receives wholeness. The person receives healing. The person experiences a miracle. As Jesus says to them, you become what you believe. But I want to make it very clear. This is a universal principle. So it works whether you're claiming wholeness or separation. It works whether you're believing for a miracle or getting stuck in the past holding a grievance. It works whether your beliefs are rooted in love or rooted in fear. I pray that I can articulate this in a way that makes sense. We don't just get to selectively use the principle and say, okay, I become what I believe. And so that works for me on all the positive, juicy, exciting stuff. But when I'm afraid and when I'm in a bad headspace and when what I believe is not so great, then I'm just going to put that principle, tucked away, locked in a cabinet, on the shelf somewhere. No, we don't get to do that. We don't have that option. It's a universal principle. Whether you use it for a miracle or you use it to stay stuck in the past, repeating a pattern again and again and again, it is always true. You become what you believe. Your beliefs are creating your life. And the power of free will here is that you are not stuck. You are not trapped here. You are not a victim of a fate that has been predetermined and already decided, and there's nothing you can do about it. The power of free will is that you get to choose. You get to decide. Particularly as a starting point for everything else, you get to choose what you believe. Now, I want to pause here and say, later this week, I will be recording an episode of Rave Church, a brand new Rave Church experience. If you are listening to this down the road and you want to find the one that matches up, I believe it will be Rave Church Volume 4. And I will be doing an entire Rave Church experience all around the theme of what you believe and the power of what you believe and the ability to change what you believe. So make sure that you are subscribed here to the channel and keep an eye out for that experience. I know many of you love to join me on the virtual dance floor for Rave Church. And I will also just put a shameless plug here and say, I have intentionally designed my YouTube channel to be full of help, full of support, full of gold and value and resources just for you. And I want you to use it to the fullest. I want you to get as much out of it as you possibly can. So if you have not done so already, please feel free to dig around, to explore, to do a deep dive of all that is available to you here. On the home page, you will find there is a playlist for 77 Days of Goodness, the most life-changing series I've ever done. There is a playlist all around increasing your faith. There is a playlist around the ever popular and ever relevant subject of financial flow and prosperity and abundance, and so much more. There's a Rave Church playlist. There's a playlist of many episodes like this one. Please feel free to look around and enjoy it all. But going back to the topic here, we're talking about the power of belief. You become what you believe. Your beliefs are creating your life. And this 11:11 text says, there was a belief, and she not only took it, she not only claimed it, she not only chose to believe it, but she gave the belief the power of authority in her life. She appointed the belief This really is the most literal reading. She officially appointed the belief in her life. And so here's how I understand this principle as we look at this text. God was always God. The promise was always the promise. And the vision was always going to be there, ready for her, waiting for her, available to her in the invisible realm. One spiritual text says, miracles are held in trust for us until the moment we are ready to receive them. And so what I believe is, this text is telling us God was always God. The promise was always the promise. The vision was always there, waiting for her in the invisible realm, but she had a role to play. What was her role to play? Well, she chose to believe and then to give that belief authority in her life. Permanent authority, consistent authority, persistent authority. And I believe there is direct application of this text and of this principle to you and your life, no matter who you are or where you are in the world or how you got here. You have a role to play. Your role is first to choose to believe, and then to give that belief authority in your life. What does that idea mean? I've thought about this a lot. I've studied this a lot this week, preparing to share this with you. Authority means it overrides anything and everything else. Authority means it makes decisions for you. Authority means it wins out over all other factors. You can write these down if you're taking notes. You can type them out in the comments. We're talking about what does it mean for a belief to have authority in your life. Authority means it overrides anything else. Authority means it makes decisions for you, and authority means it wins out over any other factors. And by the way, hopefully you're starting to see why at the beginning I said all of us have something in authority in your inner world. So it might not be love, it might not be faith, it might not be a helpful, empowering, aligned belief, but I'm willing to bet every single person listening today, if we were doing a one-on-one work together, we could locate it and find it and unpack it. There is something in authority in your consciousness. And as you use the framework I just shared, maybe it will become easier to locate what that is. For some people, it is their trauma. For some people, it is the opinion of others. For some people, it is their parents or family or relatives. For some people, it is their past. For some people, it is their image. For some people, it is their addiction. For some people, it is their compulsive cravings. It could be a lot of things. For some of us, it is our comfort zone. For some of us, it is our fear. For some of us, it is our shame. But I want you to locate whatever is currently running the show, so that if it doesn't serve you, you get to release it and you get to have a fresh starting point and a new beginning today. So as you continue to sit with that question I offered you, look for these things. What in my consciousness tends to override everything else? What in my consciousness tends to make decisions for me? What in my consciousness wins out at the end of the day over all other factors? Now, there's a direction I felt led to go for a moment here as we explore these ideas, okay? Because a question that often gets asked on a very deep, intellectual, philosophical level is God in control of everything? I don't know what comes up for you, what pops into your brain, or where your consciousness goes when you hear that question. But as someone that was a religion and philosophy major, I can assure you this is one of the questions that people have debated about and argued about in the spiritual realm for centuries and centuries and centuries. Is God in control of everything? And everybody may not agree with me here. This may be controversial for some people today, but I owe it to you to fully share what I know to be the truth and the truth that has set me free. And I will tell you today, one of the most life-changing ideas for me ever was a mentor teaching me, no, God is not in control of everything when it comes to your story and your journey and your human experience. And before you leave me a hateful, angry comment, before you unsubscribe, before you send me an email about this, and by the way, it's okay if you still think I'm wrong at the end of this. It's okay if we disagree, but I just want to explain. Hear me out for a moment here, because again, this was one of the most life-changing ideas for me to learn from a mentor. It's not that God couldn't do absolutely anything. As infinite, loving intelligence and power and creation itself, it's not that God couldn't do anything, couldn't control anything, couldn't make anything happen. It's not that. But God is at the core and by definition love. And to put a finer definition to it, infinite, unending, unconditional love. God is love. And love is the opposite of control. Love does not seek to control. I feel led to emphasize this for somebody today. I don't know who this is for. I don't know what situation you're in, but somebody trying to control you is not somebody who loves you. And control is not ultimately going to get you safety, no matter what your mind and your fear try to tell you. Control is certainly not going to get you love, because love does not seek to control. So it's not that God couldn't do anything and everything, but God is love. And love does not seek to control. And we have been given choice. We have been given free will. We have been given the opportunity to engage or not engage, to live in wholeness or not in wholeness, to let ourselves be loved or to refuse love. So, no, God is not controlling everyone and everything. God is loving everyone and everything. But God is not controlling everyone and everything. Another way to say it would be, if we think about, okay, God is love, and I know I'm getting nerdy today, Professor Stefan in the house, I guess, in this episode. If God is love, and that's like an identity, that's a truth, that's a noun. Let's now talk about it as a verb, okay? God is not controlling, that's the wrong verb. God is also not forcing. What is always true is that God is loving, and God is giving, and God is blessing. That is always true. That is always happening. But it's not forced. We get to choose. God is not forcing. God is always giving. God is always blessing. God is always extending an invitation. We get to choose. And I felt like I was supposed to share all of that for somebody today. And I pray that you can see how that principle is literally illustrated in this text, this 11:11 text that I was drawn to the other day, because this text makes it so clear. The person it's talking about had a role to play. God didn't just control everything. God didn't just force an outcome. God didn't just predetermine a fate for her in the situation. She had a role to play. And so God was always God. The promise was always the promise. The vision was always the vision available to her in the invisible realm. But she got to choose. What am I going to believe? And what belief am I going to give authority in my life? I feel like this is a simple 3-step process. Please write this down on physical notes or type this out in the comments to help your brain remember it. One of my mentors says, what you never hear, you can never receive. And what you don't hear twice, you will not remember. It's a little cheesy, but I think there's a profound truth to it. What you never hear, you cannot receive. And what you don't hear twice, you will probably not remember. And so I'll just put my cards on the table and share a little secret with you. Part of the reason I use so much repetition in my teaching, and I say it again and again. I say things multiple times, and I invite you to type it out, and I invite you to say it out loud, and I invite you to write it down, is because faith comes by hearing what you have never heard. You can't receive what you don't hear twice. You may not remember. I want this to be integrated. I want this to get into your memory, into your subconscious mind. So here's the 3-step process. Step 1, believe. Believe the eternal truth. Believe the message that love would offer you. Believe what God has shown you. Believe the promise. Believe the vision. Step 1 is to believe. Step 2 is to give the belief authority. To decide that this is settled. It's not up for discussion. It's not up for questioning and doubt. It's not up for negotiation. Decide that it is a settled matter. Number 2, give the belief authority. And then number 3, keep it in that position. Keep it in that position. Think about it this way, and this is where I like the analogy of like royalty or monarchy here. Once a king or a queen or a ruler is appointed, they stay in that position. You don't undo it the next day. You don't restart the next day. You don't reconsider and look for a new leader 1 hour later or 1 month later. Do you see the truth in this example? The principle that is hiding in this ancient language. Once you appoint a king or a queen, they stay there. Once you appoint a belief, let it stay there. Number 3, keep it in that position. And I felt led to tell you today, the beliefs that I have temporarily tried on over the years have generally done nothing for me. I don't have a success story for them. I don't have evidence of them. I don't have anything exciting or miraculous or fun to report back. This is my truth. This is what I've experienced. The beliefs that I have temporarily tried on in different forms over the years have generally done nothing for me. But the beliefs that I persisted in, even for relatively speaking just a little while, have absolutely moved mountains in my life. Let me say that again. The beliefs that I have tried on temporarily or momentarily have done nothing for me. But the beliefs that I have persisted in, even for when I look back at it, relatively speaking, just a little while, those ones have utterly moved mountains in my life. I also felt led to tell you today, you don't usually discover what truly has the authority in your inner world until you face a curveball, a challenge, or a contradiction. And I have to say that one again because you all know I'm such a sucker for alliteration. You don't usually truly find out what has the authority in your consciousness until you face a curveball or a challenge or a contradiction. But that's when it gets real. That's when you really get to find out and ultimately decide, what belief am I clinging to? What belief am I sticking with, no matter what it looks like? What belief is truly the authority in my life? And this isn't in my notes, but I just feel called to add here. Ideally, you want the king, the queen, the president, that would be ideal. You want them in position before the crisis hits, right? You don't want a transition of power, ideally, if you can help it, to be happening right in the middle of a major situation. If we use this, again, just as an analogy, typically you want the right person to have already been appointed before you move through something. And the same is true here. And I want to be very clear. If you're in the middle of a crisis, if you're in the middle of a transition, if you're in the middle of something major, that is okay. And please don't judge yourself for that in any way. There is no judgment on that. And God is with you, and you could not possibly be more loved than you are right now. And this is a perfect moment to begin building beliefs. But let me just say, if you're not in the middle of something intense, please don't think that, well, this isn't really a priority, this isn't really important, I can wait, because I can just assure you, it would be better to build the right beliefs, to appoint the right beliefs, to get the right beliefs, running things in your consciousness well in advance before you hit a curveball, a challenge, or a contradiction. So here's the biggest question that I want to invite you to ask yourself today. Please, everybody, type this question out. What belief do I need to officially appoint in my life today? What belief do I need to officially appoint in my life today? And let me just encourage and reassure you here, I would never ask you to do something that I wasn't willing to go first in. In fact, something that I hadn't already gone first in. And I have already asked myself this question even today in my time with God. And by the way, I received a surprising answer. I received a juicy answer. I'm not going to share it and get into it here, but it was fun. I am so glad I asked this question and received an answer. So, I would never ask you to do something I wasn't willing to do. I've already asked myself this question. I'm inviting you to ask it today. What belief do I need to officially appoint in my life? I believe that every single person listening to me right now is going to be guided to the answer for you. Doesn't have to be the expected answer, doesn't have to be a dramatic answer, doesn't have to look like my answer or somebody else's or something from the past. What is your answer? I believe divine guidance is going to make it clear to you. What belief do I need to officially appoint in my life? To put into authority in my heart, in my mind, in my consciousness. And before I bring us to a conclusion and move us towards a prayer moment, let me just say one more thing here. I'm sharing all of this unfiltered, as accurately as I can share it with you the way I feel called. And what I really felt led to encourage somebody specifically today with is, once you answer this question and you're guided to an answer and you have a belief that God has brought to mind, this is the right one for me in this moment. This is the belief that I need to appoint and I am going to appoint. I'm choosing to appoint in my life. I just felt led to challenge you. Would you practice having that belief in power for at least a week? There's nothing mystical or magical or super spiritual about the time frame of 7 days. It's just simply the number, the amount of time that I felt prompted to offer to you as I was praying over this teaching. And so it's just a suggestion. Take it or leave it. As with any of my teachings, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. But I felt called to invite you. Would you appoint a new belief? And would you consciously, deliberately, intentionally leave that new belief in power for at least 7 days? Would you rehearse it? Would you bring it back to your mind? Would you sit with it and chew on it and meditate on it and reflect on it? Would you work that new belief and consciously bring yourself back to that new belief for at least 7 days? You have heard me teach before if you've been around in this community for a second. It doesn't take time. That's not the law. That's not the principle. It doesn't have to. It's not about it takes time. It takes practice. That is the most accurate spiritual truth. It takes practice. And some of us, if we're being honest, we try on a new belief for 30 seconds or 30 minutes, but we've never truly appointed a belief and let it stay there and let it change us and impact us and affect us from the inside out. We've never actually stuck with a belief for even 7 days in our consciousness, 7 days in our reality. And I felt called to invite you, as you answer that question, what belief am I called to appoint in my life today? Would you not only appoint it in the moment, but would you leave it there and practice living with that belief for at least 7 days? This is the 11-11 principle that I felt guided to share with you. In just a moment, I'm going to pray for you and with you, as I always like to do at the end. But before we do, 3 quick invitations that I always like to offer for people who are resonating and may have a next step to take whenever I do one of these mini episodes. Invitation number 1 that I want to offer to you is to open up your heart fully and completely on the deepest level, to connect to your source and your creator, and to let God in fully into all of your life. There is no greater yes that has changed my life more than a yes to God. That yes on the deepest level changes absolutely everything. And you know I am always going to be passionate at the deepest level about you getting connected back to your source. Because as I've often said, it is so much more difficult and so much less joyful, so much less rewarding and purposeful and fulfilling to try to receive things from the source without any connection to or relationship with the source. And it is an ancient principle, but a timeless principle, that when you put your spiritual connection first, everything else is added to you. So that's invitation number 1. There is infinite unconditional love available to you. I pray that you open up your heart. I pray that you let it in and let God speak to you today about whatever may be there for you in the invisible realm. Second invitation today, the only reason that you are hearing this episode right now is because of my partners all over the world choosing to believe in this work and support this work. Partners, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know who you are. I am eternally grateful for you. Somebody listening to this today may be called to become a partner and to go on a whole new journey, unlike anything that you've ever experienced before. So I just want to invite you to consider today making sowing and reaping a consistent part of your life. That's why I'm so passionate about teaching these principles. That's why my partners see the results that they do. It is because of a choice. not just to believe in the truth of sowing and reaping, the truth of generosity, the truth of partnership with God ultimately. They didn't just choose to believe it. They chose to give that a consistent place of power in their life. And I want to be very clear. Sowing and reaping is not required for you to be loved. Sowing and reaping is not required for you to be a child of God. Sowing and reaping is not required for you to create a certain result in a certain area up to a certain point. It's not about a pressure. It's not about a rule. It's not about a requirement. But let me be very clear and let me say unapologetically, sowing and reaping is a divine gateway built into this universe that leads to expansion and increase and prosperity. And that's not just a bunch of exciting words thrown together. I say that in the most literal sense on the basis of so many principles that I have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours studying and taught to you in the past. So please hear me. It's not a rule, it's not a requirement, it's not something you have to do, but it is a gateway to expansion. It is a gateway to abundance. And if you are feeling called to sow here or to sow anywhere, I just believe there's a reason for it. And there's a harvest that God knows is waiting for you there. It encouraged me so much when somebody shared with me just the other day. They used to hear me talk about partnership and they never thought it was for them. They always just listened through that section and saw it go by and they thought, this is for somebody else. Somebody else will do it. I'm not in that position. I'm not the right person. This isn't for me. And then one day, they suddenly saw it differently. One day they decided, I want to participate in sowing and reaping in my own world. And it has changed their life already in just a few months. So lovegrovepartners.com has all the information. That's the second invitation for anyone who feels called, is to give sowing and reaping a permanent, consistent place in your life. If you are becoming a partner today, send me an email to the address at that website. I want to know that you are stepping in to this incredibly powerful gateway, and I want to personally welcome you and pray for you today. Last but not least, third invitation I want to leave you with quickly before we pray is, your faith may be exactly what somebody else needs right now to believe again. That is how I heard it as I was getting ready for this teaching and praying for you today. Your faith may just be exactly what somebody else needs desperately in this moment to believe again. And I pray that you always feel this intention and this heart behind my teachings and behind everything that I do. I believe at the core, you are not meant to be blessed in isolation. You are not meant to be blessed just in a solo way for yourself. You are not meant to be blessed in a way that just flows to you and is separate and disconnected from everybody and everything else on this planet. We are moving beyond that paradigm now. I really believe this, and I affirm this. I speak this. I pray this over all the spirituality conversation out there, that we realize how interconnected we are, that we are so interlinked with one another, that we need one another, and you are blessed to be a blessing. There is a blessing that is meant to flow to the world through you. And so, as I often do here, I just want to invite you to take a second, maybe close your eyes, take a deep breath, put your hand on your heart and ask, is there somebody I am meant to encourage right now? Is there somebody who needs to hear from me in this moment? If there is, if anybody comes to your mind, it is certainly not fear trying to convince you to love somebody else. That would never be ego. That would never be self-sabotage. So trust the intuitive guidance that comes through. If anyone comes to mind, And I'll just say it one more time. I really believe your faith may be the very thing somebody needs right now to be able to believe again. Let's pray as we wrap up this mini episode. If it is safe and comfortable to do so where you are, you can go ahead and close your eyes. And God, I just pray for every single person who is praying with me right now. I believe that they are not here by accident, but more than that, God, I believe that they are not an accident. Who they are is not an accident. Who you created them to be is not an accident. What is inside of them is not an accident. Their potential is not an accident. Their message is not an accident. Their gifts are not an accident. And I feel called to speak over them right now. They are exactly who they are meant to be. And we need their gift. We need their message. We need their light in this world. The universe is not the same without them. God, I pray that you would illuminate for every single person listening right now what has been calling the shots and running the show in their world that they didn't even see up until now. I decree and declare for each of us that anything that has been there in authority, in power, calling the shots, especially if it was unconscious, especially if it came from fear or pain or trauma, especially if we didn't even see it up until now, that it now gets to dissolve in the light of truth and the light of grace and in the light of how loved we are. And so I pray that you would show us where patterns and ideas and identities have been running the show, and it's not who we really are, and it didn't come from you, and it doesn't serve us. And I decree and declare those things are right now being released. Those things are right now being let go. Those things are right now being replaced with something new, something true, something life-giving and life-changing. God, thank you for showing every single person today what is the one belief, and there might be many in the days to come, but in this moment, God, what is the one belief that they most would benefit from giving authority in their life? I pray that right now you would make that crystal clear to every single person going through this episode with me. And I pray that they would appoint it and then stick with it. That they would persist in it. God, I pray that they would not doubt it or question it or renegotiate it the minute that they face a curveball or a challenge or a contradiction. But that they would leave it there in a place of power, that they would stand in it and rest in it and persist in it and stick with it. Because God, as I have shared very transparently today, the beliefs that I have tried on temporarily have not done much for me. But the beliefs that I let stay in a place of power persistently in my life have absolutely moved mountains for me beyond what I would have ever dreamed or imagined possible. Thank you, God, that mountains are moving for people right now. Thank you, God, that new beliefs are being appointed as this goes forth all over the world. Thank you, God, that because we become what we believe and our beliefs are creating our life, that as a new belief gets appointed today, something new is being born. Something new is being initiated. Something new is being created in our stories right now. God, I pray for the person who has been living in separation, feeling so lost lately, that somewhere along the way they got disconnected, or maybe they've never really known how to connect to all the divine love and goodness and peace that is there for them. God, I pray that they would feel how close you are to them right now. That you are more real than anything they can see, that you are closer than their very breath. And I pray that right now they would let themselves be loved in a way they never have before. God, what I know for sure is that when we receive love, it always results in miracles. It cannot help but produce miracles. It always expresses itself in miracles. So I call forth a manifestation of love that results in miracles for every one of us now. God, I pray for every person who is on the fence about letting sowing and reaping be a part of their life. As I said multiple times in this teaching, you know my heart, God. I pray that they know and can feel my heart. I would never invite them into something that I did not truly believe and that I did not truly live out. That I was not willing to go first in and be a demonstration of. And God, it is my truth, it is my testimony that this has given me peace. This has given me an unshakable trust. This has given me blessing. This has given me expansion. This has given me increase that I would never have even been able to dream up when I first made that decision 14 years ago to make sowing and reaping a part of my life. So I pray for every single person who is on the fence and every single person who is stepping into that journey today. I decree and declare, God, that as they do, it is a truth, it is a promise, it is a belief that we anchor into and give authority that every dimension of their life overflows with infinite blessings. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. I feel the faith rising up. I feel the excitement and the vision as we think about what it would look like for every dimension of our life to overflow. And last but not least, God, I pray for every single person who is sending love, sending encouragement, sending a message of faith to somebody in their world today. Would you guide us and direct us? Who needs our love? Who needs our light? Who needs our encouragement? God, we are available for every blessing that you have for us. We are. And I make no apologies about that. It is your will for us to be blessed. It is your will for us to prosper. And I speak that over every single person here. But God, just as much as we are available for every blessing you have for us, we understand it's not just about us. We understand it's bigger than us. We understand there's a bigger picture. And there is a role we are meant to play in this world, that we are alive on purpose for such a time as this. And so for every single one of us, especially God, all the leaders who are a part of this community, we recommit right now that we are available for the blessing to flow through us to the world. Thank you for blessing the world through us. We are available. Thank you for healing the world through us. We are available. Thank you for speaking to the world through us. We are available. I pray all of these things, knowing that as this teaching goes forth, you are translating it and speaking through it and personalizing it on a heart level for every single person out there. So I speak this word in the name of Jesus for each and every one of us. Say it with me, and so it is, and so I am. Amen and amen. Thank you for joining me for this mini episode today. I know it's still a little lengthy for being mini, but just so you know where my headspace is at, when I feel led to share on a topic in a little bit shorter of a format, that can be anywhere from typically 30 minutes to 60 minutes, somewhere approximately in that length, I do a mini episode, and as I said, we have that playlist on the channel. So if you ever need a teaching that is not, as most of mine are, 2 to 3 hours long, know that that is available there for you. If we're not already connected by email, I would love to encourage you in that way. It is completely free, and I would love to send you my favorite teaching of all time as a free gift right now. You can sign up and make that happen at lovegrove.club. The link will, of course, be in the description here. One more time, I will invite you to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I still feel, if I'm being real, a little bit annoying for asking for that in a video, but I also believe in this work, and I also believe in these teachings, and so I have committed to my soul, to myself, to God, to do everything in my power to share these and expand this work all over the world. Thank you for letting me do that unapologetically. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you, partners, for being in this journey with me. I love you, I believe in you, and I will see you back here soon. The best is yet to come.